brought back so many horrific memories from when I was a child. I had to start concealing my identity. The media company that I was working for was silencing us, controlling our reporting. My name is Lucy Madaris, and I am a Middle Eastern analyst for a very well-known Western media company. And this is my story. To be honest, I didn't really understand that I was half Iraqi. I just thought I was like everybody else at school. I didn't understand why my dad's side of things conflicted so heavily with Australia's government's narrative, the US, the UK, all these big leading superpowers. Like how is his voice so different? What does he know that I don't know? I'm called a terrorist every single day. I have no one to play with me. I have no friends anymore. I'm truly alone. People don't care. And it was again reminded that like my Arab side of the family, myself, our lives do not matter, and they see our lives as cheap, and we don't have stories, we don't have dreams, we don't have personalities, we're just a number. When I was younger and going through my GCSE and A-levels, I was deciding what I wanted to be, and obviously seeing how biased the Western media coverage was during 9/11 and the lies and the propaganda, I knew that my calling was to work in, ironically, media. I wanted to set the narrative straight. I wanted to represent and showcase what the Middle East is really about, how beautiful our culture is, debunk all these Western lies about Middle East and Middle Easterns. And that's why I wanted to work in media, because I felt like there was not a good representation of Arabs in Western media, and the narrative was completely false and lies. People think that the media just say these things like carelessly. The media are very crafty in how they use language to report on what's going on. Even with the facts and the videos that you see coming out, they are still using language to manipulate and downplay the Palestinian suffering. I have a few colleagues on my Instagram, and they were all watching my stories. Every time every time I was posting, they were watching it immediately, and I became shadow banned like everybody else did, posting about what's going on in Gaza. And I thought it was very interesting that they were the first ones to view my stories, even though no one was really viewing them because I was shadow banned. And then I became quite nervous and anxious about everything, and I felt like an outsider. And I remember going into work, into the London head office, and everyone was looking at me again, like how they looked at me when I was 7 years old during the Iraq invasion. I was looked at like I was the enemy. People were, not friendly to me anymore. They thought that I was like a terrorist sympathizer. They obviously know of my background, and it was like I immediately made them feel uncomfortable, but really I was the one feeling uncomfortable. I felt very isolated. I was really like on my own. There are a few Arab people in my in the commercial side of the business that I was friends with, like colleagues, and I was asking them like, how do they feel about all of this, and how do we go on from here? How do we continue working for this? How do we do we rise up internally and protest? We're outnumbered. Like how do we deal with this? So not only was it like emotional for me because Palestinians were being slaughtered, and that triggering memories of what it was like growing up in Australia and dealing with the racist media there. It was really, I can't even describe how I felt. I didn't even want to get out of bed. I felt like every minute of me being there made me complicit in this war propaganda mouthpiece. Articles start coming out. I start seeing on our social media at work, how they are reporting on this, and it just sounded like the same rhetoric that was used from other Western media companies during 9/11 and during the invasion of Iraq. And that's when I became really, no words can describe how I felt. I felt so conflicted. I felt sick. I felt everything I'd felt from when I was a child that took decades to heal came flooding back. I had anxiety, I couldn't sleep, I didn't know how to tell my family, this was not why I got into media at all. And I thought that the world learnt their mistakes after 2 million Iraqis were killed, 7 million displaced around the world. I thought, surely we've learned by now. I kept drafting emails to the chief editor. I was trying not to sound too emotional, but it's like, how can you not be emotional? I was trying to be as factual as possible, and the facts speak for themselves with what was going on in Gaza. And I kept writing it, deleting it, writing it, deleting it. And then I spoke to my family all the time, asking them, how do I go about this? And obviously, they were all like, you cannot work for this company anymore. You will have blood on your hands. And obviously I knew that, but I didn't want to just quit in vain. I wanted to quit with reason, at a protest, why I'm leaving. And so I wrote a letter to the chief editor explaining the facts, what was going on. I cannot be a part of this. And she didn't even email me back. She didn't even acknowledge me. It is our job, it is imperative that we are unbiased and we report exactly the truth and only the truth. And if we're not doing that, we are complicit. We are a propaganda mouthpiece for the corruption.